Hello and welcome to the Headache Doctor podcast. Where on this podcast, it's our mission to educate and empower everyone with headaches and migraines so that you can break free from a life of fear of your next headache or migraine and dependence on medication. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about why you got a migraine on spring break. And if you didn't get a migraine on spring break because maybe you didn't travel or go anywhere on spring break, we're just going to talk about why you're afraid of traveling or why you would get a headache or a migraine associated with travel. This is something that comes up quite a bit with both in-person patients and then coaching clients that we have. Travel is something that can be very intimidating when you have headaches or migraines because you're out of your comfort zone. Maybe you don't have access to certain things that help you manage your symptoms, whether it be, being able to lie down in a dark room or access to, your favorite pillow that you sleep with. Or maybe just like medications that you normally have accessible to you, whatever it may be. And then there's some sense of fear around the travel itself. So the plane flight, riding in the car for long hours, whatever the mode of transportation is to get to your destination. Oftentimes that can be a trigger as well. So people travel for work, they travel for leisure. Especially if you were on spring break. We've already had a few people come in after they were on spring break and had a pretty rough migraine and are like, I need to take care of this. And so not being able to travel or having fear associated with travel is something we see commonly. So I thought it being post spring break, we should chat about it. There's several things that we can do to change the situation so that you feel more confident with travel. And this is something we talk about with our coaching clients. We've had several people that are like, I'm going on a trip in the next couple of weeks, and I just want to make sure I'm kind of equipped to know what to do to avoid a headache or a migraine as best as possible. So that's what we're going to talk about. First, I'm going to lay out the different scenarios that I believe are causing or leading to the symptoms or the migraine being triggered in the first place. And then we're going to problem solve with those different situations. All right. So first is the travel itself. Like I said, the flying, the long hours in the car. There's potentially like pressure changes with flying. Not potentially, the cabin will be pressurized. I think the flight would be somewhere around 10,000. I guess 30,000 feet if you're. But they pressurize it to about 10,000 feet. Is my understanding. Here in Colorado Springs, we're at like 6,000 feet. About roughly 6,000 feet. So we're already at altitude, but there's going to be a discrepancy from where we are to even that 10,000 foot mark. So it doesn't really matter where you are. You're going to feel a change in the pressure in the cabin as the plane takes off. And so sometimes it's the change in pressure that is hard to regulate for people with headaches and migraines. When we have neck tension, jaw dysfunction, shoulder tension, the upper part of the neck in particular is in such close proximity to things like the eustachian tubes and little muscles that interact with the jaw and then also interact with the tubes like the eustachian tube that allow pressure to be regulated, and it allows for drainage and any sort of like fluid that's built up to drain into the throat so that doesn't build up and impact the ear or the inner ear. And so when the eustachian tube isn't functioning properly because of the tension that you're carrying, people have a really hard time adapting to pressure changes or changes in altitude. Here in Colorado, if you drive up to the mountains, you can go from 6,000 feet to 8, 9, maybe 10,000 feet. And that change can be difficult for people for their bodies to accommodate to. So think of ears popping, pressure being released. That's something that should normally be happening when we go up or down in altitude or when the pressure changes. That way our ears are adjusting. And so if that's not happening, really you're just seeing an increase in the amount of pressure, which inside the ear, inside your head, which is basically a trigger. It's sensitizing something that's already sensitive. So when we have this headache or migraine presentation, one of the reasons that like alarm bells are going off everywhere and everything just hurts and feels sensitive is because of the pain pathway that these pain signals travel on, and then the brain interpreting this as coming from multiple different areas. And so all these different areas, although not directly a problem, can be hypersensitive. And so when we see pressure increase in the ear because the pressure's changed on the flight, or you drive up to the mountains or whatever it may be, you're sensitizing or causing an increase in sensitivity to something that's already hypersensitive, which can just trigger the whole cascade of symptoms. And so pressure changing is a big one for people, especially on flights. And a couple things you can do here to try to accommodate to this. I personally like to chew gum. Chewing gum is not necessarily something I would recommend to most people with headaches and migraines, because the jaw is probably carrying a level of tension that we don't want to be actively using the jaw throughout the day, more so than what would be normal or regular accepted with just 3 meals a day, that type of thing. And so if we're chewing gum all day, I would put that in the negative category. But when we fly, if you keep your jaw joint active, that will help to open and close, or at least work through that same area and impacting the eustachian tube in a positive way. That's why taking snacks on the plane and chewing gum, whatever it may be, as you take off can be helpful. Help your ears and the pressure regulate. I would also suggest not necessarily taking a nap on a flight, or even on a road trip if you can help it. When you take a nap, now think of your neck as already having tension. Like if you get regular headaches, migraines, or really any frequency of headache or migraine, it's telling you that you have a neck issue. And so if you are on a flight and you're sleeping, and even if you have one of these like travel pillows where it kind of cradles your neck, your head's going to be tipped to one side or the other. Maybe it's slumped forward. It's just not in a good position. And so sleeping, let's say you sleep for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it may be, even a half an hour, it doesn't really matter the length of time. The longer is definitely going to have a greater impact on your neck, but the tension is going to build, and then you're going to wake up and probably just feel awful. Like you're going to get a headache, you're going to get a migraine, that sort of thing. And so not only are you not necessarily actively moving your jaw in order to accommodate to the pressure, but you're in a static position with your neck sustaining some level of tension that it's not going to like, and then you wake up and you feel a little bit worse. So yeah, make sure your jaw's moving, stay awake and alert, try to have good posture during the flight, maybe take a little lumbar roll so that it's natural for your low back to have a curvature to it, and then the mid back and the neck can relax a bit more. Just do little shoulder rolls or look up every now and then, especially if you're looking at a laptop or on your phone. Try not to sustain one specific posture throughout the flight. Try to be symmetrical. So don't just sit there with your legs crossed and leaning to one side. And it doesn't matter, like reading a book, looking at your phone, whatever it may be, but you want to be symmetrical. So weight through both hips, both feet on the floor, and upright. If you can, like if it's a long flight, try to get up and move. Just, whether it's going to the bathroom or just walking around, whatever you need to have an excuse to get up and move around, I would suggest you do that. And take intentional steps, like try to walk with purpose, relatively fast paced, like moving your shoulders. Might look kind of funny, but people are like, why are you walking so fast? You say, well, I listen to this guy on this podcast, and you should too. But yeah, try to move on the flight. If you're traveling by car, take breaks, get up, walk around. If you're capable of it, like jog, do some push-ups, do jumping jacks, whatever it may be, like just get your body moving. You may not be, a lot of people with migraines are fatigued, or if you have daily headaches, like, you're not going to want to do jumping jacks necessarily, but just getting up, getting out of the car, going on a walk so that you're giving your body some movement can be really therapeutic. And then the same applies to riding in the car, where I wouldn't suggest sleeping in the car. You can control your environment a little bit better. Like if you recline your seat back all the way and can get in a position with a pillow that your neck feels pretty supported, that might be okay. But if you're just like relatively upright and your head's slumped against the window or whatever it may be, with like a sweatshirt tucked under your neck, that scenario is not going to bode well for your neck when you wake up, and you're probably going to have a headache or migraine. So that's the travel portion of it. If you're traveling with luggage, like in the airport, just try to have like a good solid backpack if you have a carry-on, rather than something that you're slinging around one shoulder or, carrying with just a handle. So make it easy on yourself, make it easy on your shoulders. Try to reduce the amount of weight through it. So just take the essentials on your carry-on, put everything else in the checked bag. If you can just check all your bags, that's great. Do it. I know Southwest is getting rid of their 2 free bag policy, which is a bummer. But if you can afford to pay for the checked bag, I would say you're doing yourself a favor as far as reducing neck tension and shoulder tension getting to the flight. And then while you're waiting for the flight, don't necessarily sit there. Like, take that time to actually be active. If you're going to be sitting on a 2 or 3 hour flight, don't sit for an hour waiting for the plane. Get up and move around. Just go on a walk. Just keep walking. And that's where, not having a carry-on might be helpful, because if you're carrying a heavy backpack and you're walking, it's like, I want to put this thing down, but you can't leave a bag somewhere in the airport. So there you go. There's my tips for the travel portion of it. Okay. Now, when you get to your destination, a lot of people find that they're worried about, the bed they're going to sleep in, the pillow, is the, mattress going to be too firm or too soft? What's the environment going to be like when I sleep? And so these are big issues. We have a lot of people that when their body's so sensitive and their neck's, so sensitive to any change in their sleep position, the pillow they're using, that when they go on vacation, they can't control their environment as well, and they have to use different pillows, and then they end up waking up with a headache or a migraine. And so, of course, the simple thing to do would be to take your pillow with you, if possible. So if you're driving, shove it in your car. If you're flying, they have travel-sized pillows of the side sleeper one that we recommend, Splintech side sleeper pillow. And if you can fit that in your suitcase or as a carry-on, that'd be great. But when you get to a hotel and, they just have like the real soft kind of squishy pillows, sometimes they may be relatively supportive, but I haven't actually ever done this, but I wonder if you ask them at the front desk, like, do you have alternative pillow options or have foam pillows? I'd be curious to see if hotels actually carry like a few like more supportive contoured pillows. And especially if you're a side sleeper, I would definitely ask that, see what they say. Like, we can be a little high maintenance when we're traveling and dealing with migraines. And so, but bring your pillow with you, especially if you're a side sleeper. If you're a back sleeper, probably not as crucial. Like I've said in the sleeping position podcast, back sleepers, like any pillow will probably do, like any standard, relatively flat pillow. We don't need anything too thick or supportive when we're on our back. Potentially back sleeping can benefit from like contoured so that our head's not like slumped to one side when we're on our back. But back sleeping, if you can sleep on your back, maybe try that when you travel, even if your preferred way of sleeping is on your side at home. If you're a side sleeper and you don't have the right pillow for under your head, but there are additional pillows available, hug one, put it in between the knees. That way you're at least supporting like your shoulder and you're not rolling onto your stomach, because those can get you in extra trouble. Okay. So travel with your pillow, ask for a foam pillow, have additional pillows that you hug, one in between your knees, so that we can like mitigate the negative impact of being in a different sleep environment. All right. So that's sleep. The other thing that we see commonly with travel is a change in diet. So there's a lot of people that, they'll consume alcohol, or maybe it's just like an increase in sugar consumption. Some people are so sensitive with like gut health, and then in combination with their pain and pain threshold, that it's just a change in the types of foods that you're consuming. Maybe it's like you're exposed to more processed foods or foods that have different types of fats in them or cooking oils that you don't normally use. So there's different things that can impact our body and be more inflammatory. And those ingredients that are inflammatory, or those food groups that are inflammatory, oftentimes we can be exposed to them more so on vacation. Now, it's not as if those are directly causing you to have a headache, but again, it's lowering your threshold. It's something else your body might have to deal with that it doesn't really like. What I would argue is that on vacation, you maybe your spending is a little bit freed up. You're like, I'm on vacation and we have a budget to spend on food, and I would suggest you choose foods that are going to be healthier, more in line with what you would normally eat, and but like splurging every now and then. But ultimately, I would see vacation as like a time to focus and improve on your health rather than a time of like letting go and just sort of ignoring what you do to help mitigate these symptoms when you're at home. And so just, be aware of diet. Know your triggers. If you don't think you have any food triggers, but you know that whenever you travel, it's a problem, meaning like you get headaches or migraines, this is an area that I would consider. Like, what foods are you consuming? Do you have an increase in the amount of soda that you drink or alcohol, different beverages? Are you going out for like a sugary Starbucks every morning, whereas normally you wouldn't do that? So those sorts of things I would look out for. The other thing with while you're on the vacation is the amount of activity that you're doing. As far as the vacation itself. So if you're laying on the beach, if you're by a pool, the more sedentary type vacations can be a problem. I mean, we're out of our normal routine. Maybe we're used to like working out every morning and then we go on a walk with our dog in the evening or whatever it may be. And so if we have a normal rhythm of movement that we've incorporated into our day, then when we go on vacation, that sort of falls apart. And we're just reading a book at the beach, and it's like mentally very relaxing. Maybe our stress level reduces, so we're definitely getting some benefits. But the physical tension could potentially be increasing because we're not moving like we should be, or how our body wants us to move. And so again, I would look at vacation as like a time to improve your health. So maybe they have access to a gym, or they have tennis courts, or they have just nice hiking paths nearby, something where you can get out and walk and move. And I would try to even push yourself to do more than what you would normally do. Okay, I guess it depends on the type of vacation too, but maybe you are the type of vacationer that like goes to the mountains, or you go to Europe and you're like backpacking or whatever it may be. If you're more active, I've also seen that as potentially a problem. And so there's balance here. I've definitely had patients that go to Hawaii and they want to do these kind of extreme hikes, and they get, when they're on those hikes, it seems to be a trigger. And so a couple of things here, I would take with you, and it's more of like a mentally take with you, the idea of doing, 2 or 3 exercises or stretches that are going to be beneficial for your shoulders, for your neck, and you're just going to sprinkle those in throughout the day. Okay, maybe leading up to the vacation as well. You're doing these regularly, and in order to reduce the amount of tension, so that when you go on the hike, you're starting at a relatively lower level of tension, and then your body, although we might not be able to totally avoid the fact that tension will increase, like we're at least doing things to help mitigate it, and your baseline when you start is lower. And then after, again, go back to those exercises, try to relax your shoulders, reduce neck tension, that sort of thing. So exercise is good, hiking's good. Sometimes our bodies just aren't used to it. And a lot of that comes back to like dysfunction in the shoulders. If you haven't listened to, I've got a few podcasts on it, but like the shoulder neck connection and how shoulder dysfunction relates to headaches and migraines. That's oftentimes what's happening here, whether it's hiking or, biking or whatever it may be. Like typically our shoulders are more involved, and the shoulders being involved, if they're dysfunctional, means that our neck is kind of being pulled into this as well. And so we want movement when the shoulder's dysfunctional. It depends on the level of dysfunction, but if we go past the capacity that our shoulder has, it's sort of we get the benefits of the exercise, but there's a negative in the fact that like there's increased tension through our neck, potentially through our shoulder, leading to a headache or a migraine. Okay. All right. So we've got travel, we've got the sleep, we've got the diet, we've got the type of activity you're doing while you're on vacation. Now that last one, where I talked about, do 2 or 3 exercises that you're regularly implementing into your day. It's in the regular rhythm of your day. Like if you sat on the beach for 2 or 3 hours, like you're going and doing some stretches in the hotel room or whatever it may be, or you're going to walk on the beach. So if those are things you want help with or guidance with, that's what our coaching program is for. We talk through stuff like this. We make sure you really understand what travel looks like and what you should be doing and what sort of things you can implement. So this is the type of stuff that can be super helpful and a bit more personalized to you on our coaching calls. And then, of course, if you're local and in town here, one of the best ways to prevent a headache or migraine from popping up while you travel is treating the problem itself. And so going through our process, restoring neck mobility, reducing tension at all of these different spots, neck, jaw, shoulders, that can translate and refer pain into the head or the face, is ultimately going to mean that you are going to be much more resilient and capable of handling the things that life throws at you, and especially while you're on vacation, allowing you to go on spring break, be with your family, go to Disney, hike the mountains, whatever it may be, without worrying about a headache or a migraine. Now, we have a lot of people, they're like, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine going on a vacation and not having a headache or migraine, not having to worry about it. If you haven't listened to Amanda's testimony, Amanda Gerber, she was on the podcast 3 or 4 episodes ago, go back and listen to it, because that was one of her big things. Within 4 visits, she went on a trip to, it was on the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest, and she didn't really have that big of an issue. I think she might have had a mild headache, but it was like nothing compared to what she was used to with travel. And so we see that a lot, and we want to help you get out of this. So if this sounds like you, if you resonate with this, please reach out to us, noveraheadachecenter.com. We have locations in Colorado Springs and Parker, and we'd love to help you out. The other thing too, if you've been listening to this podcast, you probably have heard the little ad in the middle that talks about the SAM device. Now, if you're hesitant to actually reach out to us and go through our coaching, that's a little bit confusing. You're like, I'm not sure if coaching is for me. We do have free visits for both virtual and in person, and so we can talk through that. But another way you can interact with us is by purchasing the SAM device. It's on Amazon. You'll get it within a couple days, and it is a device that we just got a review recently from someone in person who we saw a couple weeks ago use the device, and within that 2-week period, before he started seeing us, before that appointment, he was getting recurring migraines. So it was like he was kind of stuck in this cycle. He's been using the SAM device, and he was skeptical, but he's like, it actually works, and I'm feeling better. And so the SAM device is something I want to get into your hands, especially if you're out of state and you're not able to access this directly. It's an element of what we do. It's not as if like, meaning we want it to accompany and partner with whether it's our virtual or in-person treatment. But if you can't do the virtual or in-person, like buy the SAM device, because it will be helpful. And we want you to understand this neck problem, which it'll help you understand that and give you an avenue to start treating it. And so keep listening to the podcast, implement the things we talk about on the podcast, buy the SAM device, and I hope you're on your way to headache and migraine relief without having to rely on the medication, as it's our mission on this podcast to educate and empower everyone with headaches and migraines so that you can break free from a life of fear of your next headache or migraine and dependence on medication. I'll see you next week.